Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the soundtrack for the 1992 game Mario Paint for the SNES, composed by Hirokazu Tanaka, Ryoji Yoshitomi, and Kazumi Totaka. It's interesting, kind of good overall, but not all the tracks are good individually. It's available through the Nintendo Music app. This is the track listing. 19 tracks, comes in at a little less than 30 minutes, so pretty decently sized soundtrack here. These are the tracks I added to my playlist, 6 out of 19, so a little more than a fourth. This soundtrack is really interesting and flows quite well, despite the fact that most of these tracks aren't very good on their own. The title themes and drawing board themes open up the album relatively strong. Each of the 3 themes are very different, which gives the album a lot of character, which I like. And that continues throughout the 3 different versions of a couple of the different tracks here. The 3 pre-composed melodies fill out the middle of the album quite well, although they are definitely a little weird because of how they are made. Save and Load and the Nat Attack songs pushed to the end of the album quite well. I was expecting these to be a lot more similar to each other than they were, which is pretty nice. Despite most of the songs being kind of meh, the album as a whole feels very full, since no sounds or themes are really repeated anywhere, which is a problem with some of the other Mario soundtracks. Still, I think that some of the tracks here are just as interesting as the more iconic Mario songs, despite being kind of worse. The drawing board tracks are all pretty interesting. The Nat Attack ones are all pretty interesting. But overall, for my favorite track, I've got to go with Save and Load. It's a great techno track that blows everything else on the soundtrack really out of the water, in my opinion. Now, I rank this album 7th out of the 10 Mario albums I've heard so far. Really good, but definitely not the best. It's definitely the best of the sort of non-iconic soundtracks. The only real difference between Mario Paint and the albums immediately above it, like Dr. Mario and Super Mario Bros., is the iconic tracks on those albums, which Mario Paint lacks. It's definitely the best out of the sort of Super Mario Land, Super Mario Bros. 2 area of sort of good but not as memorable. And as an album, though, the quality is just as good as some of those albums right above it, like the Dr. Mario ones. It just lacks the same amount of really great tracks that ended up getting reused from Super Mario Bros. And stuff like that. In terms of the Super Nintendo soundtracks, I rank this one 4th out of the 5 SNES soundtracks I've heard so far, only over The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which is a similar level of quality as Mario Paint. Those two are both kind of at the bottom here. They're both good, but I think that Mario Paint is a bit more interesting overall. Link to the Past has more sort of iconic, memorable tracks, but it doesn't really come together well as a whole soundtrack. It gets pretty boring at times, while Mario Paint stays interesting despite having sort of less good tracks overall. Definitely a tight spot there, but both of those two are definitely sort of the worst out of the 5 SNES games I've heard so far. Now, Mario Paint definitely doesn't take my top spot from 1992. That stays with Kirby's Dream Land, which is not only my top Nintendo album for the year, but my top overall album for the year, and is definitely better than Mario Paint by a lot. I really like that one. So, thank you for watching. Next up will be the soundtrack for Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, released in 1995 for the SNES. So stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.